Horticulture, pastoralism, uh, and advanced agriculture.
Okay, foraging.
Yes, ma'am, foraging
Okay,
and nomadism.
okay.
And
Anything else?
ma'am, did I say shifting
Ma'am,
cultivation?
hunting and gathering as well.
Yes, ma'am, hunting and gathering.
Hunting and gathering.
Okay. Now, the transhuman nomadism is something which in which you take the example of the Gaddi tribes of Himachal Pradesh or the Nuer community of Eastern Dinaric region of Africa. These are the communities that are very good examples of transhumans. Okay, and in this scenario, something which is very interesting that I want to highlight here is that this particular uh, system in which people have their cattle, and this cattle, uh, I'm sure you know about the Gujars and the Bakadwal community.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
What is their subsistence strategy? Can anyone tell me? And what is the system of their subsistence strategy? Can anyone tell me that?
Ma'am, the Bakarwals are nomadic tribes only,
Mm-hmm.
and I think they have I don't remember correctly, but goats. I think they keep goats with them.
Goat and sheep.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Goat.
And they derive any food products from those goats and sheep only, which they take to places in order to get them fed, like in grassland areas, so that the sheeps and goats could feed.
See, they are a pastoralist community or the shepherd community, okay? The Bakarwal. The Gujars, on the other hand, are pastoralists and they have buffaloes. Now, these two communities, very interestingly, keep a nomadic lifestyle. Okay, now why did I give you so many examples? Because I wanted you to understand that the Gujars and the Bakarwals don't have a transhuman system. The entire village or the entire community moves together with their you can say, sorry, with their animals, and they move together to this lower lands in the cold months. They move to the lower regions where the vegetation is going to be plenty. Now they are habituated to living in colder regions, okay, and obviously sheep can survive in colder regions only, but when it gets really cold and there is snow and when there is less vegetation in the higher altitudes of the regions, then they come down. But what is the difference between them and the transhumans is that transhuman nomadism is when the family remains uh, in the village, but the husbands, basically the men and the adolescent boys, move from their houses and leave the women and smaller children with the women in the houses. And what happens is that all the women gather together and make household items and make, woolen products. But the sheep, along with the adult male and adolescent male, moves either higher or lower depending on the availability of the vegetation. As you can understand, you may try to think that what is the significance of subsistence with regard to ecology. Again, you need to understand that with regard to ecology, when communities are moving up and down, and they are leaving behind their women, or they are leaving behind their entire village, and women are also going with them. It is actually going to change their kinship organization. It is actually going to change how they are going to be interacting with each other. What is their dependence on each other? All of these aspects are going to be there with regard to this kind of system, subsistence pattern. So when you study subsistence pattern, you already have the notes from uh, I think third semester. I request you to just go have a look at uh, how many times is ecology so significant that they have to you know change their entire social system, entire socio-political system according to them. Okay, so that is the major relevance of this kind of subsistence pattern, because as you can understand, when a village is fairly stationary and it doesn't move and it is not nomadic in nature, then the concept of property is going to be different, the kinship pattern is going to be different, how the division of property takes place is going to be different, leadership is going to be different. In transhuman nomadism, where men are moving out, obviously a significant amount of time is being spent between women. Then in that case, what do women do? Is there a leader among women? All of these things actually happen to change. So you can actually these as good examples of transhumans in India. Okay, so I wanted you to just focus on this and see how the subsistence patterns have changed the kinship patterns and the society of a particular community. So it's a good way of understanding the significance of environment and environmental determinism, or vice versa. Okay. Now, since we had completed rational choice theory, uh, I no, I think some sections were left. Okay, let me quickly complete rational choice theory. But I had told you yesterday that most of the time, as we label human beings as rational choosers, we forget that as rational choosers, sometimes they tend to justify and they tend to rationalize their actions, and in doing so, they can be unreasonable also. Now, obviously, what happened was that this particular theory also received great amount of criticism. Okay, it's significant amount of criticism because it was highlighted that not every culture or community was um, you know being rational towards their ecology, towards their environment. Okay, this was something which was considered to be detrimental to the environment. And I told you yesterday also that it was almost ironical that science come from the Western world, and Western world has often been considered as being detrimental to the environment. Now, uh, the rational choice theory, uh, you know, helps us to comprehend ecological practices around the world, but it is very significant for us to understand their history. How did they develop? We have to also understand the series of events, including, things that may have happened by chance, suddenly, spontaneously, to those things that were planned by the community. So there are several aspects that we need to understand when we are looking at ecological practices around the world. Okay, now, is this clear to all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll just give
Yes,
you
ma'am.
one more example where ecology is not something you ever think about. Let me just give you the example of Christmas. Okay, now how is a quintessential Christmas celebration or Christmas Eve started in the western part of the world? How does it begin?
Ma'am, with setting up a tree.
Decoration
Yes,
or
ma'am.
getting a tree.
They
Yes,
say
ma'am.
they took it from other cultures,
Yeah, the
from the celebration of Odin's birthday
hmm,
and things like that.
yeah, because the other day I was discussing about religion with your junior batch and also your senior batch, and I just happened to ask them about who is the God in Christianity. And 90% of the class actually said Jesus. And I said, this is misinformation because Jesus is considered to be messenger of God, and he is not himself God. God is someone that you cannot comprehend with your limited human capabilities. So, what I was trying to tell you here is that one of the very interesting things that we tend to see in celebration of Christmas is the Christmas tree. And there's a lot of emphasis on the Christmas tree. But in terms of Christianity, when you look at it, then tree is a signifier of ecology. Okay, and when people decorate that tree and put gifts around that tree for the children and for family members, and that tree is something which becomes the centerpiece of their celebration on December 25th, you actually take out elements. Now, what is the significance of December 25? Yes.
Ma'am, 25th December, uh, I think in the Western world it's the sun god's birthday.
So,
I think it's celebrated as the sun god's.
I think
That's
I think you must have heard of paganism. I have taught you paganism.
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Rest of the class, what about you?
Yes, ma'am.
So, you'll find words being mentioned like Yules, okay, Yule tides and Yules. And this is where there was a Yule festival in the northern Europe, and it is from where this date and this tree became uh, significant, and it took over the Christian celebration and sort of went across the world, and it got its meaning basically from paganism and not exactly from Christianity. Now, obviously, now when you compare cultures in India, the Christians, when they celebrate Christmas, not all the Christians actually get a true Christmas tree. The reason being that the places where, first of all, the temperatures and the climatic conditions do not have Christmas tree available across the topography of India. So you'll find that different kinds of trees are actually used to decorate, and then these trees are basically sometimes also artificial and sometimes they are real. Now, even in Americas and in Europe, you will find this practice of artificial tree because people have realized that a real tree, if it is not if it is not planted and if it has been cut, entire forests have been cleared for Christmas celebration. So now people have realized that if it is just for the sake of decoration for say 1 month or 1 week or 1 day, then in that case, why cut a whole tree and why set it up inside the house when it is supposed to be in the forest? And therefore, a lot of people have made this ecological adjustment of getting an artificial tree. Now, do you see rational choice now? Do you see the rational choice then? If you look at the history, how the history has shaped and how it has shaped the ecological choices of people. When the forests were plenty, people used to have real trees. But now, even in colder climates where the tree is available, people have become more rational choosers of the tree. And in terms of the festival, they have realized that if it is about getting a tree, why not get an artificial tree which I can use year after year instead of buying a new tree every time and killing one tree? So it's something like that where rational choosing has worked well. So I just wanted to give you example that looking at this, that adopting it from Europe and how the tree became significant, how the tree was actually initially not used in the Christmas celebration, and then how so it is not exactly the birthday of Christmas which people depict, but how these two things were taken over, and at that time that was the choice of the people, and that seemed like a rational choice when they took it from the paganism. And today, when they don't have that tree, uh, the true tree, somehow people are making these ecological choices where they are shifting away from cutting off actual trees, a system that they had taken historically from northern Europe. So this is those individual choices that brought us to ecological adjustment, and sometimes these are rational choices and sometimes these are irrational choices, and this is what the theorists tried to highlight. Is it clear to all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, the next thing that I wanted to discuss is that when you are discussing about ecology, then you have to discuss something very significant, and that is the idea of evolution and adaptation. Okay. Now, these are some really important um, ideas. I'm sure you already know what is evolution and you already know what is adaptation, right? Can anyone tell me what is evolution and what is adaptation?
Ma'am, adaptation is something which we adapt with our nature or surrounding, with our culture.
Okay. Can you give an example, Priyanka? Can you give an
Yes, ma'am.
example?
Yes, ma'am, I'm thinking. For example, last time I gave example about the tulsi tree. After sunset, we don't touch the plant.
Yes.
So it's a adaptation for me. I don't know the reason why we are not touching plants. Everybody have their own myth, but it is the adaptation.
Okay. Um, Fine. That is okay. Anyone else who can tell me about evolution and adaptation?
Ma'am, evolution is the change in characteristics of species over several generations. And ma'am, these changes have been um, like inherited within the species by via natural selection. So, ma'am, that is evolution.
Okay.
And ma'am, adaptation would mean adapting or adjusting to one's physical environment. that would be adaptation. But adaptation is just it's not genetic, whereas
Okay.
evolution will be genetic.
Over time.
Adapt Yes, ma'am.
Over time.
Adaptation is something that people or societies form on their own, or they adjust. They have their particular way of adjusting, but evolution is inherited genetic. Evolution happens genetically.
Are we talking about cultural evolution and adaptation or the biological one?
In general, I'm talking about evolution and adaptation. In general, I'm talking about evolution and adaptation. Um, okay, so let us just try to understand what is the difference between evolution and adaptation. And as you can understand, that there is change in the environment, and we have already discussed how environment changes, right? We have already discussed how environment changes consistently, and how this change in the environment is something which you know leads to changes in our lifestyle, in our cultures. Now, all the environments are dynamic environments, and therefore what happens is that all the environments being in dynamic means that the changes are going to be consistent and continuous. Okay, now this will happen in terms of both time and space. As environment will change, obviously organisms are supposed to change as well. If they do not change, we say that the organism is not adapting well. But if they change, then we say that the organism is adapting well with the environmental changes. Okay, so adaptation is the ability to acclimatize oneself either temporarily or permanently. Okay, so suppose you are used to um, a warmer climate, a humid climate, and then then you are suddenly expected to go to a colder climate, to a higher altitude. Now what will you do? You already know that your body cannot adapt to these environment, temperament changes in the temperature. So what do? You carry clothes that are well suited to give you protection, because your body cannot adapt to changing temperatures. So we as human beings, what are we? We are incapable of adapting to changing temperatures. So we require different kinds of technology to sort of adapt to our what should I say? To adapt to our environments. Okay, climatic conditions. But at the same time, there are various mechanisms which we have in order to adapt to something. Okay, we use a combination of biological as well as cultural mechanisms. Okay, so the concept of evolution is something which is often widely misunderstood, because it is, what is evolution? Evolution is a change. Okay, everything that is changing is said to evolve. Okay, now you may say that not everything changes, but that is not true. Everything changes in some way or the other. Everything changes, and therefore we say that everything is constantly evolving. Are you getting my point, everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so
Yes, mom.
when you're talking about evolution, you must understand change is evolution. Okay, now your social situation also changes. When your social situation changes, you evolve as human beings. Are you getting my point? You evolve as human beings only because your social situation changes. When you change, or your age increases and your experiences increases, then also you will find that there are changes in terms of uh, you know, your experiences, and there are changes in terms of your maturity, and we say you have evolved as a human being. Now interestingly, this change can be for the good or for the bad. There is no guarantee in which direction will this evolution go. Obviously biologists define evolution in terms of gene frequencies in the population from generation to generation. Okay, other disciplines define evolution in different ways again, but you must understand that evolution basically, very broadly, means change in the system, in the mechanism of anything. Okay, now obviously a lot of people believe that evolution has a direction, and this direction means that evolution is always an advancement. Is it true?
No, ma'am.
Can you explain why with an example?
Ma'am, if we were to take the example of multicultural or multilinear evolution only, then
Mm-hmm.
we have seen in multilinear evolution that it is not necessary that a society, if like if we are giving name to the stages of evolution, that it is not necessary for a society to go from savagery to barbarism only. A society can go back to savagery from barbarism. So the change is in either directions. It can go towards civilization based upon the technology that they have, or it can come back to a foraging society altogether if like given the technology of that society. So it's not necessary that in that scenario it's not necessary that evolution is always an advancement. Given the terms that we think what advancement is, because advancement means progressing, moving forward in a direction.
Hmm.
But
Yes.
multicultural evolution does not mean that we move forward in one particular direction. Multicultural evolution people can come back to the original state, or they can progress further, or they can just develop a new stage of advancement altogether, which we may or may not consider as advancement or progression.
Hmm.
So, ma'am, that's an example.
Okay. Okay. Yes, it does. It does seem, feasible to say that not always is movement from one stage to the other a indication of advancement, and not always is advancement something which can be equated with evolution. Because what we see as advancement is greater complexity. Okay, so thinking that savagery to barbarism to civilization, as you have said, is something which is advancement. In that case, you will find that it may not always be true, it may not always be evident that every kind of evolution is moving from simple to complex ideals. Okay, very simply, I will just give you an example. With the coming of things like entertainment consoles, and with the coming of things like entertainment centers, uh, there was a change in the way in which children used to play. Now, to most of the people, it may not be relevant to understand how. um it is important or significant, because you will say that okay, it is a technological advancement, and a technological advancement means that we are progressing and we are evolving. But with the coming of entertainment console, with the coming of television, with the coming of entertainment centers, what happened? Children's ability to play outside became less and less. Their engagement with physical exercise became less and less. And especially in white countries, in Western countries, white American, cultures and families, there was this increased fascination with spending hours together in front of the television, and therefore it came to be known as the idiot box. Why was it known as the idiot box? Because it did not give rise to anything but a sense of deprivation, or degradation in terms of how people were thinking. So television became something which was synonymous to idiotic behavior in children, and therefore it came to be known as idiot box. It did not matter who the box was talking to, as long as it was speaking, it just went on speaking. In the world of technology, it was a major development, but in the world of human society, it gave rise to problems like obesity. It gave rise to terms like couch potato. Okay, what does a couch potato do? A couch potato is an individual who lies aimlessly on his or her couch, doing nothing, absolutely nothing, just looking at the idiot box. Are you getting my point, all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
So
Yes, ma'am.
I basically
Yes,
wanted to
ma'am.
give you a very simple example to tell you that while it is something like advancement that we talk about, this advancement may not always be synonymous to evolution, and evolution doesn't always mean that there is change for the better or for the good at all times. There are times when you will find that changes are more or less, uh, you know, um, for the destruction of the humankind as well. There is a full possibility of the changes being, um, for the worse. So you cannot call it evolution per se, evolution the way we understand it. If we understand evolution as change, then that's a different thing, be it negative but or positive. But we tend to understand evolution as positive, as moving from simple to complex. So what do we say? That starting from amoeba to becoming a complex human being, or to becoming a complex animal, there was evolution that was at play, and this evolution basically gave rise to, how do I say, this evolution basically gave rise to extremely advanced, extremely, significant decision making. Does that mean that amoeba as and when it is required is any less significant? No. Does that mean that their survival instinct is any less? No. Even being unicellular, if you try to just trap an animal, or a unicellular organism, you'll realize that they try their best even with their one cell approach to survive that habitat. In fact, uh, if going by that, a cockroach should be considered to be the most advanced and most evolved species, because a cockroach is known to have survived nuclear radiation, is known to have survived every kind of radioactive radiation, is known to have survived extreme heating, it's known to have survived severe cold, is known to have survived almost, volcanic temperatures. So ideally we should consider them as the most evolved, and just because they are small or they are tiny does not mean that they are not evolved. Are you getting my point, all of you? So, going by that, if we talk about the theory of dinosaurs, then we know how the dinosaurs evolved and how these dinosaurs were basically incapable of surviving the changes that took place in the environment and they perished. Am I clear with all of you? So they did not have the ability to adapt to the environmental changes and therefore they perished and they could not evolve or adapt to the environmental changes. Is it clear?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. So we'll talk about how ecology is significant here in adaptation and in case of evolution, and that would be mostly it with regard to, you know, uh, the whole idea of theories. Basically, we will almost be done with the theories. Okay. Okay. I'll be uploading material now because we have almost we have covered the significant chunk of our syllabus, and all that is left we will try to clear sorry cover this during 1 month, and then I will again give you people few MCQs and few more assessment tests or something like that at the
Excuse
same.
me, ma'am.
Yes, Vasundhara.
Ma'am, is there a way that the test can be oral only? Because, ma'am, like
The test can be,
last
I didn't get you.
oral, ma'am, like we were like you had discussed earlier about an oral test, ma'am. Because this test that we had, the questions, uh, there was a significant amount of matter that should have been written in every particular question, without which the answer doesn't make sense. So, and ma'am, like I have MS access to MS Teams on my phone only. So I have to type on my phone, and I don't have a very big screen, so like I can't type that fast. So I cannot put the amount of information I want to put in an answer.
Vasundhara, we can't do any thing with regard to that. The only problem being that the documentation of tests is to be done as well. So it's not just about the fact that children are facing, students are facing problem. I completely understand and I completely empathize with your concern, but my problem is with regard to the documentation, and that is why don't worry, we'll use variety of mechanisms. There's not just one way of giving all of you a test. Are you understanding? And there's not one
Okay,
way of
ma'am.
for you people to take a test. There are several ways in which the text test will be conducted. I just wanted all of you to also be ready in a written format, because as you know the university rules are also very dynamic in nature, and most of the times what happens is that the rules change and you are not used to, so these tests are also kind of trial run for all of you to know that how the exams may be like, because your final exams are certainly not going to be oral in nature, as you can understand. So that's why it will be a combination of techniques. Don't worry about that. Let me just quickly take your attendance.
Okay, ma'am.
Abantika, Akshat, and Ankur.
Present, ma'am.
Ma'am, can you?
Present, ma'am.
Okay.
Present, ma'am.
Present, ma'am.
Okay. Dipanshi, Divya, and Georgian.
Present, ma'am.
Present, ma'am.
Present, ma'am.
Ishita, Jay, Karan.
Present, ma'am.
Present, ma'am.
Present, ma'am.
Okay. Neha, Priyanka,
Yes, ma'am.
Ritika.
Present, ma'am.
Okay. Samaksh,
Present, ma'am.
Stanzin, Vasundhara, Vipul, and
Present,
Vishnu.
ma'am.
Okay.
Present, ma'am.
Present, ma'am. Can you see
Okay.
me, ma'am?
Present, ma'am.
Yes, I can. Okay. Okay. Thank you. I'm stopping here.
Ma'am, excuse me.